This is our news, the weekend edition. And on the broadcast tonight, the Prime Minister makes a national address days before the country reopens its borders. Plus, a little girl is shot in Eleuthera, and police now have 2 suspects in custody. The details ahead. And later, what one business is brewing up in the midst of the pandemic.
Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Andrew Knowles, and thanks so much for joining us. Topping news tonight, government has once again revised its entry requirements for visitors to the Bahamas, shortening the window of time a COVID-19 test must be taken before travel. Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis addressed the nation this afternoon, just 3 days before the country's borders reopen. Government is shortening the time frame for COVID-19 testing for those entering the country. Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis announcing today that effective July 7th, the tests are to be taken 7 days before travel.
Until that date, tests that have been taken no later than 10 days prior to travel will continue to be accepted. We have made the window of time for testing shorter for the protection of Bahamians and residents.
Bahamians and residents returning to the Bahamas from countries where they are not able to obtain a RT-PCR test will be permitted entry. However, they will have to prove the test was unavailable and will be subject to a mandatory 14-day quarantine upon arrival. Those returning after 72 hours of travel or less are not required to undergo any testing.
However, these travelers will have to be quarantined for 2 weeks upon their return home. In both instances, the period of quarantine time may be reduced if the traveler opts to take a COVID-19 test upon arrival in the Bahamas and the result is negative. The traveler will be responsible for the cost of this test.
As the country prepares to welcome visitors for the first time in 3 months on Wednesday, hotels and vacation rentals may reopen while taxi services and private and public bus services may resume operations with 50% occupancy. Gyms and outdoor group exercise are also cleared to resume on Wednesday. Attractions, excursions, and tours are to reopen on July 13th, while vendors, inclusive of straw vendors, and jet ski operators remain closed until July 27th. Meantime, beaches and parks will reopen tomorrow on New Providence, Paradise Island, Grand Bahama, and Bimini.
Please be reminded, gatherings on the beaches of more than 5 persons are strictly prohibited. This will result in a fine under our emergency orders. Our enforcement teams will be monitoring this risk closely. Mass gatherings may result in the immediate closure of the respective beach.
And to ensure compliance and enforcement, Dr. Minnis announced the establishment of a COVID-19 enforcement unit led by the police force. Residents and visitors could face a fine of $200 or a 1 month in prison if they fail to wear a mask in public. Fines will also be levied on businesses that allow patrons entry without masks, ranging from $500 on the first offense to temporary closure of the establishment on the third. Dr. Minnis also made a strong plea to avoid non-essential travel.
Please, stay at home. I beg you, I implore you to stay at home. If you must fly, visit our family islands.
The Prime Minister also focusing a portion of his national address on the controversy surrounding a proposed project for North Andros. Dr. Minnis made it clear the government will not grant approval for a free trade zone on Andros or sell off large tracts of land.
Again, I want to be very clear for all to hear. This government will not grant a free trade zone in Andros, nor will we alienate or sell off vast tracts of Bahamian land as a previous PLP administration allowed in Mayagona when 10,000 acres was alienated to a foreign group.
The investors' proposal became a national concern after it was leaked in the public domain recently. The proposed North Andros Green Free Trade Zone would include the development of 500,000 acres of land, harvested aragonite, medical research facilities, air and seaports, and other developments. According to the Prime Minister, government has not approved the proposal.
We welcome Bahamians and foreign investors submitting proposals that are win-win for the people of the Bahamas and for the investors. At this time of great economic hardship, we need all the appropriate investment we can get. However, my government will not approve concepts from Bahamians or foreigners we think are not in the best interest of the Bahamian people.
In news from the crime beat tonight, a 2-year-old girl is fighting for her life after she was shot on Eleuthera last night. The toddler was airlifted to the capital, where she is in critical condition in hospital. Police have since arrested 2 male suspects in connection with the shooting. Officers on the island responded to a shooting at Baby Johnson Lane in Hatchet Bay shortly before 10 last night. Police say the infant's grandmother was sitting on the porch of her residence holding her grandchild. That's when a vehicle approached and 3 men exited. Police say one of the men, after making a comment, produced a handgun and fired it in the grandmother's direction and left. Moments later, she discovered her granddaughter was shot to the lower abdomen. No word on whether the grandmother was also hurt during the shooting. Meantime, police here in the capital also investigating a shooting yesterday. They have a female in custody assisting. The incident occurred shortly after 6 p.m. in the area of Comfort and Hay Streets. Officers recovered several fired cartridges from the scene. Further investigations led police to Rupert Dane Lane, where they discovered a silver Nissan Cube with gunshot damage. A female who identified herself as the driver was subsequently arrested. Investigations continue. Billows of smoke filled the Harbor Island air yesterday after a yacht caught on fire. Police received reports of a boat fire around 12:35 p.m. at the Valentine Resort and Marina. When they arrived on the scene, they met a 66-foot fiberglass Sunseeker vessel called Vanish engulfed in flames. Now attempts to extinguish the flames were unsuccessful. We're told the vessel had a party of 5 on board. Fortunately, there were no injuries reported. Police continue their investigations into this matter. As some resorts announce plans to make employees redundant, one union leader is calling on government to work with unions to find ways to assist those workers. Berthany McDormand has that.
Trade Union Congress President Obi Ferguson is calling on government to collaborate with unions to assist the hundreds of hotel employees that will soon join the unemployment line. His comments come as the Grand Lucayne Resort made 116 employees redundant, and Bahamar is set to make some 1,200 employees redundant. According to Ferguson, government should at least make an effort.
If you don't talk to me and I don't talk to you, you don't know what I can do for you. Some of these unions have pension funds. These are difficult times. The pension funds belong to the worker. So if there is a sensible discussion, why can't we then look at how we can access some of that pension fund which belongs to them in any event?
In the early onset of the pandemic, thousands of hotel workers were sent home as the major resorts were forced to shut down. And now, as the country prepares to reopen, Atlantis Resort announced its plan for a phased reopening beginning July 7th. However, the same cannot be said for other major resorts like Bahamar, Sandals Royal Bahamian, and the Malaya Nassau Beach, which announced their intentions to reopen later in the year. This means thousands of Bahamians will remain without a paycheck. It's an issue Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance Peter Turnquest said government is looking into.
We are looking at that industry in particular because they were, before now, really outside the assistance package. But those persons are still able to benefit from the NIB unemployment benefit program in the first instance. Once they've run through that 13-week period, then we're going to have to look at how do we further assist them through the government's own programs. And so that is an ongoing initiative that we're looking at.
Meantime, Ferguson said the union isn't getting the respect it needs from government. He said in emergencies like this, exceptions should be made to assist these workers.
We're not getting the cooperation and the respect that is required of the government or entities, the private sector. It's not coming over. And as a result, the workers are suffering as a result.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
Customs Controller Dr. Janine Moss says the department has seen a decrease in revenue as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. However, she could not say how much was lost.
The loss in revenue would account for the fact that the airports were closed, the ports were closed, the cruise ports, pleasure vessels were closed. However, the cargo was still being imported. As you very well know, that you went into the food store and food was always there. So how did that happen? Because Customs was able to stay on the job and to facilitate the import of those goods.
Moss added that they're expecting things to pick up.
When you talk about the physical movement of people, of course the Ministry of Tourism has revved up their campaign to encourage visitors to come back. Of course, the specter of COVID is still looming on us, right? And so it will be up to the visitor whether they're going to come or not. Goods will still come. We have back to school coming, so we expect that cargo, the back to school, would be flowing as usual. I saw that Bahamas had put out some terrific round trip airfares, so we're hoping that the adventurous Bahamian would jump on the flight and go to South Florida and shop and come back.
The Democratic National Alliance is weighing in on the recent downgrade of the country's credit rating by Moody's. DNA leader Arinthia Komolafe says while the downgrade is unfortunate, it comes as no surprise. Moody's downgraded the Bahamas' rating by 2 notches into junk status territory, which Komolafe says indicates the credit rating agency has serious concerns about the Bahamas economy.
The reality is that most Bahamians share the same concern and worry about the future. The DNA warned against ill-advised policies and actions by the current administration that worsened the Bahamian economy, including but not limited to increasing value-added tax by 60%, placing the nation on a tight timeline to reduce the deficit, purchasing the Grand Lucayan Hotel, and the lack of proper focus on economic growth.
Now, while COVID-19 and Hurricane Dorian were major blows to the economy, Komolafe believes it is disingenuous to suggest the downgrade was as a direct result of these 2 crises. Instead, the DNA leader blasted successive governments for laying the path to non-investment grade or junk status. There have been 7 downgrades between the previous PLP and F&M administrations, according to Komolafe.
It is time to press the reset button and reimagine the Bahamas and Bahamian economy. The DNA submits to the Bahamian people that both the F&M and PLP are clueless on delivering a healthy Bahamian economy. It's time to send them to the back of the class and prevent the continued ruin of what was once a strong and thriving Bahamian economy. We have no more room left for errors.
Still ahead for us tonight, the opposition leader calls for more focus on BAMSI. Plus, could climate change mean migration for some Bahamians?
As world markets reopen, now more than ever, people are looking for ways to improve their health, fitness, and overall well-being. Morning Moves is a daily exercise show hosted by the Bahamas Queen of Fitness, Bowflex Barbie, where viewers get to join and have fun and exciting workouts right from the privacy and comfort of their home. Each episode will also have a health and lifestyle segment to help viewers live healthier, more fulfilling lives. Morning Moves will be previewing on our TV channel 212 starting Monday, June 22nd through Friday, June 26th at 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. and Saturday, June 27th at 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. Be sure to tune in because there's nothing like it on local TV now, and we're giving you the opportunity to be a part of this new and exciting movement. Contact us today at 601-8198 or email mediasales@cablebahamas.com to learn how you can advertise or become a sponsor of the hottest new show in town, Morning Moves with Bowflex Barbie. The perfect way to start your day.
Welcome back. Next tonight, amid debate over projects proposed for Andros, Progressive Liberal Party leader Philip Davis is calling on the Minnis administration to focus more on the development of the Bahamas Agricultural and Marine Science Institute.
The PLP, however, strongly supports the continued aggressive and further development of the Bahamas Agricultural Marine Science Institute, BAMSI, as a viable vehicle to achieving food security and import replacement for a number of local staple food items. This is consistent with the IDB-funded Andros-specific development plan.
BAMSI, the brainchild of former Prime Minister Perry Christie, was created under the last PLP administration. Davis says since its inception, BAMSI has garnered the support of international organizations. This, he says, proves it remains a success.
BAMSI is the country's most viable executing mechanism for achieving national food security, import substitution, and sustainable economic empowerment for our people.
A climate scientist says the impact of climate change could result in the need for Bahamians in some areas to migrate. Jared Higgs tells us why.
The Bahamas, a low-lying country surrounded by beautiful water. But with sea levels rising, climate scientists have warned that the country is at risk.
We have communities that are spread across our archipelago. Are we able to protect all of these communities from climate change?
According to NASA, in the next several decades, storm surges and high tides could combine with sea level rise and land subsidence to further increase flooding in many regions. Research predicts that most of Spanish Wells and Grand Bahama would be under flood levels by 2050. Dr. Adele Thomas is the director of UB's Climate Change Center. She says it's time for the country to start factoring these things into its decision-making.
Do we need to start thinking about consolidating communities, relocating communities? Every development decision that we make moving forward needs to have a climate change lens to figure out, is this going to increase our vulnerability to climate change, or is it going to help us to make sure that we exist in the future?
Dr. Thomas says the possibility of some Bahamians having to find a new home is certainly up there, whether that means having a plan domestically or outside our own borders.
Relocation and migration is part of our future that we will see in the Bahamas, whether that's us relocating within the country, so we protect some areas and that's where people will have to move, or we relocate, to other countries that are less vulnerable.
The main contributor to climate change is the burning of fossil fuels such as oil, coal, and gas. Even though the Bahamas isn't a major culprit in global pollution, the country will be forced to deal with the consequences.
They're not the main contributors in any sense to global greenhouse gas emissions, but there are things that we need to do. We need to focus on adaptation. So how do we reduce our risks? So that means taking a good, long, hard look at how do we develop in the future.
Reporting for Our News, I am Jared Higgs.
President of the National Congress of Trade Unions, Bernard Evans, is calling for full transparency over the two proposed investment projects for North Andros. Evans also insisted the government must do its due diligence and not just think about jobs when it formally reviews those proposals. Jasmine Brown reports.
The National Congress of Trade Unions president, who was born and raised in Andros, says he, like many other Androsians, are anxious to learn more about the proposed project.
I born here, raised here. I was fishing in Eastern waters, right in the back here. Right, of course, I was on regatta side over there. And so Andros is the last opportunity for Bahamians to really get a foothold and ownership. And certainly, Andros really belongs to Androsians first and Bahamians as a whole. It's a very fragile island, and so very, very stringent, scientific, in-depth research need to see what can happen.
Evans spoke to our news team at the North Andros site that is at the center of one of those multi-million-dollar proposals. One of the projects is the North Andros Green Free Trade Zone, which is being proposed by Los Angeles-based billionaire philanthropist Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong. The American businessman's proposal aims to create 750 plus full-time jobs and 10,000 construction jobs over the build-out. Up to $250 million will be invested over the first two phases of the proposed development. The Office of the Prime Minister confirmed on Monday that a proposal has been submitted but is not under formal review. The other project is a proposed aggregate mining and land reclamation project that would generate more than 100 jobs and a total investment of $125 million. Bahamas Materials Company Limited is behind that proposal.
I've looked into it, only preliminary. I've met with one of the developers, and very brief meeting, and they themselves said they need to have way more discussions. They all want to know what the residents here wants for themselves. I pointed out to them that first and foremost, sustainability. You can't ruin Andros for an immediate gain. I know one of them was talking about lease for about 40 years. Well, to lock this place down for 40 years is to take it away from Androsians for 40 years, and definitely that can't happen again. This is the largest island in the Bahamas. It's a known fact. It's closer to America than any other island, save for Bimini. And we have to be very, very careful.
Evans says while they are simply just proposals now, he insisted the government must do its due diligence before even considering any project.
We can't sacrifice for a short-term gain and lose the whole island. Right? And so while we welcome developments, what have you, it has to be very, very laid out properly in a very sustained way. And we have to reserve not just this generation, for generations to come.
Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
When our news, the weekend edition comes back from the break, preparing for a grand opening in the midst of a pandemic. And later, we take a look at the most memorable quotes of the week, so stay tuned.
Do you need to make payments to your bill but need to do it via wire transfer? Well, it's simple to do with Rev. You can make domestic or international wire transfers to pay your bill. Simply go to my.rev.bs and sign into your My account. Next, scroll down to the bottom of the page and click Download on your bill. Information is provided at the bottom of the bill, such as what the SWIFT number would be if you or someone else is making an international payment. Stay connected with Rev. Anytime, anywhere.
Despite the COVID-19 pandemic forcing many businesses to shut their doors, one local business is actually preparing for a grand opening. Riptide is a Bahamian fully flavored craft beer brewery creating flavors sure to bring out the inner boat lover in us all. They gave our Kyle Joaquin an inside look.
It's Bahamian made, and we're proud of that.
Docked on the corner of Armstrong and Dowswell Street, Riptide was scheduled to open just before the COVID-19 pandemic shut the world down. But now that things are set to reopen, this new spot is bringing up something cold in an atmosphere beach and boat lovers will enjoy.
Brew house is right here where you're going to we manufacture the wort. Once the wort is complete, then it gets transferred into a fermenter, which is a cone shape. It is fermented, depending on what style, anywhere from 10 days to 3 weeks. And once that is finished, fermentation is complete, it gets transferred over into a bright tank, which is flat on the bottom, and that's where the conditioning happens of the beer and the carbonization, and it's just about ready to keg, and it's kegged, and then it's time to enjoy it.
Christine Aubrey says the idea of Riptide started 6 years ago with the craft brew recipes of her late husband. After some perseverance and help from the Small Business Development Center, the brewery has come to life with an old sloop serving as the bar, wooden tables, and turquoise-colored flooring that emulates Exuma waters.
So you can see our amazing Farmer's Daughter sloop. This boat came from Farmer's Key, Exuma.
Wait, this is an actual boat?
This is an actual sloop that was made to sail in the Farmer's Key Regatta. It was sitting in ruins in the casuarina trees on Potter's Key Dock. I spotted it. It took me almost a month to find the owner of the boat. And he actually lives in Nassau now, so it was very exciting to acquire it. I sourced a Long Island boat maker to help support it because it was very compromised. We are brewing right in front of the customer. The customers can have fresh brew while they sit and talk amongst themselves. The seating is purposeful. I wanted to make sure that even though you didn't know your neighbor sitting next to you, hopefully by the end of your stay and your beer, that you have met someone new and have a new relationship, a new friend.
Aubrey says at Riptide there's a new flavor every week. We got to try the mango, which had 7% alcohol. And as she prepares to fully open the doors, Aubrey said she's already opened curbside for those who just want to give it a try.
Okay, so right now we're in phase 1, which is curbside, and we're enjoying that. We're under the tree on Armstrong Street, and we have some Bahamian music playing in the background. On Saturday we're going to have a food truck, barbecue of course, and that should go well with our beer. And then hopefully we're gearing towards our independence for a proper opening.
For Our News Weekend, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
All right, thanks a lot, Kyle.